Hello and welcome. So for the 0.9.0 release of Paranoia Perfect Edition, I thought that I would do a little demo to kind of go over some of the features because there's some stuff that's a little bit more involved. So let's start with an additional collection that we're including, which is two Paranoia macros, which will launch two of the different applications. That should make it a little bit easier to run these kinds of games. Starting with the player draft, this is something that will let you do that the competitive character creation that you can see demoed in other games, other playthroughs of Paranoia Perfect Edition. This should make it a little bit easier to run with your players, so you can start this up as a GM, which is what this screen is down here. Select the players you want to involve in it in case you have players who are dropping in and out of the game or whatever. Then you can click Start Draft. You want to make sure that all of your players are online for this because otherwise they will not get this socket message that actually kicks it off on their side. So you hit Start Draft here. Everyone that you've selected will open up this little window. And then it randomly selects the player to go first, and then we'll try and snake back and forth from there. So every round it'll randomly select a player that hasn't gone first yet until you've exhausted all your players, and it might have to go through again. But so you can see here, this player, Food Are Good, has gotten to go first, so they're going to choose Alpha Complex. It will go to Bomberman, who picks Psychology. Now the things they can choose is limited based on they're going to be assigning to Paul R. Good. Paul R. Good Paul Rudd already has Alpha Complex. Sorry, Bomberman already has Alpha Complex, so they cannot pick the skill Alpha Complex. So let's say they pick Bureaucracy. And now in this scenario, Paul Rudd already has guns, but Paul Rudd is going to assign to Food Are Good. Food Are Good already has Alpha Complex, so they cannot assign it to them. And they already have Bureaucracy, so they cannot pick that. Same kind of thing. Psychology. And it randomly selected Paul Rudd to go first again. And it's going to try and reverse the order that it goes in between rounds. So now I'm just going to click through here. Same way that you would as if you were creating this at a table. So we're the -4 skills, -5. And then afterwards, it'll open up the sheet and show everyone and automatically calculate the brains, chutzpah, mechanics, violence based on the rules of the game. And that kind of gets you a starting point that you can go through with your players. And then you can see here, this draft is now complete. Great, we can close that out. And the other windows automatically close for the players. The other application that we launched via macro here is a thing that lets you kind of do Treason Circles a little bit easier. You could always just message your players individually, but so this lets you set up a scenario where someone has secret tech, and we're gonna assign these like this. And so the idea is that you can kind of have each of your players knows a secret about each other player, and they can kind of rat on each other. So society. So you'd make up some acts that they've done. So Bomberman stole the item, and Food Are Good maybe contact, and then maybe Food Are Good. And Paul Rudd maybe saw you drop it, and then Paul Rudd, in benefit of this is you can make this up before the game started and actually fill this out and have it ready to go at the start of this, so you don't have to come up with it on the fly like I'm doing. And like you could probably come up with something better than this, but the idea is that you have now set up this little circle where each of the players knows something about each of the other players, and instead of having to individually message them, you can click this and it will fire off whispers to each of the players. Also from the skill draft, all of the messages you can see here, every time you make a selection, it's recorded in the history. So we sent off these 3 messages, and you can see here that each of the players will have a whisper from the GM with the information that you put in there. And that's just a little app that's supposed to make it a little bit easier to set up these kind of scenarios where players are going to start trying to backstab each other with information that they have. So that should make it, again, a little bit easier to run. The last thing that we added for this, and we're going to just focus on one of these screens here. Cool. So the last thing that we did is we made it so that you can more easily add items. So you can see here now the assigned gear is the traditional kind of item thing that you might see on other character sheets. And you can add new gear, you can edit it, great. Or if you had some, yes, and if you try to delete it, it'll confirm that you would like to delete the gear before it goes away. But if you instead wanted to add some pre-assigned gear, you can go ahead and do that. So they have their red armor, red laser pistols, all good. And if you want to give them some treasonous gear, maybe, this is a separate thing that will not track with that kind of gear. And this is, again, this side of the sheet, only the owners or GMs can see it. But then you can drag this on here, and you can see that it shows some of the high-level information. And if they want to see more, you can go in here, same as they would in anything else, to actually read, what the success and the treason is for that equipment. And yeah, the other thing that we added is that now, because this side had a little bit more information kind of having to go in on this side, I wanted to make sure that you could see all of the fields and everything. So that way you're not like, oh, I just have all of this and miss this without scrolling down. So it now kind of resizes as we go. So yeah, like I said, these macros are now available in the compendium. So if you import all content, I've already done this, but if you were to do that, it would then show up here in little macros, and you can drag them to your bar. Generally, the GM's the only one who's going to need to launch these, so the players won't need to necessarily be aware of these. The player draft will launch on all of their screens when you actually click the start draft, as long as they are all logged in. The other thing that's probably worth mentioning, let me get back one of our screens here. Okay, so we have our player Bomberman here. We're going to start the draft. When you're starting the draft, you need to have at least 2 participants, because otherwise there's not really a draft going on. You can kind of just step an individual player through that if you wanted to do like a solo version of that, and it shouldn't be too bad. But we're going to launch this right now with Bomberman and Food Are Good. So Bomberman's the screen on the left. Sometimes during the testing, I was seeing that they wouldn't have the correct information for whatever reason when it initially launched. If you do run into that, this refresh button will request the current state of the draft from the GM's controller, which is actually what's running the whole thing. And that can just fix any issues that you might run into. So the only other thing that we added is that there is now settings that a GM can set to just set a maximum Moxie and it's starting XP points for new characters. The maximum Moxie will obviously be respected here. So if I go into wellness, try and set Moxie of 9, it'll reset it to 8. The starting XP will just be when you start it up. So if I were to set this to 2,000 or 20,000, 2,000 for some reason. Yes, go ahead and reload. And I make a new Alright, Bib, Troubleshooter. You can see on the wellness, they start with 2000 XP. And that's just to give you some flexibility to be able to kind of get these characters set up in the state that you want to have them set up in and make sure that characters aren't getting too much Moxie. And if you decide for your games that you want to have more Moxie, you can kind of control that. So yeah, that more or less covers it. Thanks. Have a good one.